Welcome to the Mod for PH Research Highlights. This is a public health podcast produced by the National Collaborating Center for Infectious Diseases. My name is Wendy Xie, and I am a project manager at NCCID. In this podcast series, we showcase mathematical modeling concepts and research for application in public health. We are coming back strong from a hiatus with a 5-episode mini-series to highlight the groundbreaking work from the Artificial Intelligence and Mathematical Modeling Lab, or AIMMLab, directed by Dr. Jude Kong. Jude's research program at the AIMMLab is focused on developing and deploying innovative AI, data science, and mathematical methodologies and technologies to resolve complex issues for real-world application in epidemiology, ecology, and data processing. As an introduction to this mini-series, Jude and I will discuss the ways in which Jude and his team have used AI and mathematical models to answer public health questions and highlight the overall framework, methods, and objectives of the AIMMLab. Hello to everyone listening in, and welcome to Dr. Jude Kong. Thank you to you and your team for joining us for this Mod for PH mini-series and being a part of this exciting project. Jude, please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for the opportunity and for the platform. My name is Jude Kong. I'm a professor at the Dalal Lana School of Public Health, where I direct the Artificial Intelligence and Mathematical Modeling Lab. And I'm cross-appointed to the Mount School of Policy and Global Affairs and the Mathematics Department. I'm equally a Canada Research Chair in Community-Oriented Artificial Intelligence and Mathematical Modeling of Diseases, as well as I lead 2 big networks in the Global South, the Global South Artificial Intelligence for Pandemic and Epidemic Preparedness and Response Network, and the Africa-Canada Artificial Intelligence and Data Innovation Consortium. I almost forgot the name of my organization.
It's great to have you on the podcast, Jude. To get us started, I think it's important to understand a bit more about yourself, where you're coming from, what led you to starting this lab and starting this program, and giving a bit more background and context about why you are doing the work that you're doing.
I would like to start, if you permit me, by acknowledging NSEC, the International Development Research Center of Canada, New Frontiers in Research Fund, UK International Development, CIDA, and the Canadian Black Scientists Network for supporting the work that we have been doing. Without them, we will not be able to do the work that we have done so far, that's so impactful in communities across the country. So we are very, very grateful. And I think the word grateful is an understatement, because that alone does not articulate how grateful I am or the words I have in my heart to be able to pour to them. But I think I lack words to use. What I feel is much more than what I say. I was born, Wendy, and this is just going to give you a background of why we structure the lab the way we structure it, and the approach that we used, and how we came about with that particular approach. I was born in Cameroon, in a very tiny village. In my village, there were only 2 people with a car in the village, and the closest hospital from my home was 4 hours. So what tend to happen in my community is most of the time, for you to find someone going to the hospital, it will be at a point where somebody's already dying. We tend to self-medicate. I don't remember ever going to the hospital when growing up. When you find someone about the point of dying, then you move on to go and knock at somebody's door who had a car to carry the person. And by the time you go there, because there were just 2 people in the village with a car, they may have carried another person to the hospital. People, most of the time, are bound to carry the person on their back. Before 4 hours straight, before you reached the main hospital, which was just a family doctor there, if the situation may be in a way where they ask you to move to the next city, which was Kumbu, before people even get to the hospital in the next city that was close to my village, somebody may die on their back, like the case of my aunt. And so in this village, or somebody growing up, you find most of the economic activities there was just farming. Raised by a single mom like myself with 5 siblings, you find at times my mom carrying my siblings on the back and holding me in front.
And then she goes and put them somewhere under an umbrella with the sun. And then the elder ones are taking care of them. So this mom have to finish cultivating from this farm, get firewood, come in the 3-stone fireside. You stay in one kitchen where the smoke there, they are cooking them, and then you sleep in the same bedroom. If there's a disease, everybody in that particular home will be infected because you all sleep in the same living room. We only had one bedroom in the house. When the government happened to give, say, a school in that community, primary school, it's the community that come up to build the school, put up the structure, hire the parents, teachers. And so in growing in such community, knowing fully well about the values of the community, because we all have to come up every Saturday to clear the roads, to be able to build structures within the community for community development. My thought was always to finish primary school, support my mom, and give back to that community. Till the day I was graduating, when I learned that the mathematics I had studied in the university could be used in fighting malaria. And I was just passing by and listening to this conference, and I heard the word mathematics and malaria. I had just finished a degree in mathematics and computer science. And when I heard this, I moved closer because I had lost an aunt on my back in malaria. And I never knew what I was going to even do with my degree. I never thought beyond my surrounding. And the moment it clicked on my head that I could be able to use what I learned in school to fight malaria in my village, throughout, the passion was always going to my community and fighting that malaria. To be the first to go to secondary school and being able to move from secondary school to the university. And I must say that it was still the community that got me to secondary school and the community that got me to university. So graduating on this particular day, when I passed by and had this conference, I had my aunts on my mind who passed away in malaria and other people in my community. And so I asked people that were present there on how we could be able to use the mathematics. And a lot of professors that were present there took their time to explain to me. And they said, "You are very curious," and helped me to apply for some scholarships. Again, I had studied mathematics and computer science. I never had a computer, just struggling to just get by. And when I got that scholarship, that was a breakthrough moment in my life. And still moving through that, it was all about, can I go back to fight malaria? Fast forwarding that, I moved through Italy, coming to Germany, and then studying at the University of Alberta to Princeton and back to Canada, where I started my work. It was always, how do I then form a group of people to go back and fight that malaria? I'm proud to say today, I'm not only working in my village, I'm not only working in 10 countries in Africa or in Cameroon, but I'm fighting not just malaria, but the entire diseases and helping governments prepare for and respond to disease in 21 countries across the entire global south, in communities like the one I grew up in. When I started forming this, when you ask for the objectives, was always, how do I create proactive tools for such communities? Because if things have to be reactive, no one will ever care about such a community. So my thought has always been, how do you create proactive tools for such communities? How do you ensure that you improve the predictive power of locally sourced data from communities like that to make that data smarter and more impactful for those communities? And this is a key that led me to form the lab that I have and that inform everything that we do in the lab. So to think about when I finally succeeded, what I've always thought about was always being passionate about my community and thinking about my aunt that died from malaria when I was growing up, carrying her on my back to the hospital. She passed away. When I formed the lab, the key there, the foundation there was SDG 3 and SDG 5. Health and well-being for all and gender equality. That's the foundation. Health and well-being for communities like mine. Everyone, everywhere deserve to be healthy. The pillars being, how then do you make data timely, reliable for public health decision-making in such communities? How do you create resilient, strong, and fair health systems for such community? And how do you include the vulnerable groups, people in such communities and other ones, and people with disabilities, or all intersectionalities within these. Those are the three pillars: timely and reliable data for public health decision-making, resilient, strong, and fair health system, and then inclusion and equity for vulnerable groups. These are the three pillars that stand on top of the foundation that the lab is created. We now track the disease from the whole cycle, the first thematic area being earlier detection, identifying the contributing factors that influence the disease spread within communities like that, and addressing it and creating tools that can help communities address it. You identify with communities. You create earlier warning system. You provide analysis of earlier warning signals and the possibilities for a disease to establish in communities and spread beyond the communities. You create tools that will help in early response. You provide proper early response management, and then mitigation, eradication, and control of the ones that already exist. As you follow all of these, at the core of this is a One Health strategy. Human health in such communities is not dissociated from animal and environmental health. I had my animals, the chickens and goats, were almost living with me in our kitchen when we're cooking. So we live with them. We're almost the same environment. So we're all connected. We think about this, and the One Health is core to what we do. Now, moving forward, thinking about, you asked me about just to lay a solid foundation of the lab, the framework that we use in the lab. I don't know if you've watched Atlas. Have you watched Atlas?
No, I have not.
Okay, I'm not here to advertise for Netflix or something. But it touched the core of the framework of the work that we do. Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer was a counter-terrorism analyst, deeply distrust of artificial intelligence. Her distrust came because of an AI named Harlan, who almost eradicated humanity and escaped to space. Harlan was created by Atlas, or Jennifer's mom, and Harlan was the person that killed Jennifer's mom. So this counterterrorism analyst was sent to go and get rid of Harlan because it was intelligent that Harlan was still thinking of coming back to get rid of humanity, because they thought that humans were acting against their own interest. Through this mission, things went wrong. It was another AI called Smith that helped Jennifer. And the lesson here was Smith gave up his own life to allow Jennifer to get rid of Harlan, so that Harlan should not get rid of humanity. So there are two AI here. One wanted to get rid of humanity. It's another one here, Smith, that gave up his own life to ensure that they get rid of another AI terrorist that was going to get rid of humanity. Within the lab, when I was creating a lab, it's always in my mind, when we're working on any project, we need to come up with a framework to build the AI and the mathematical tools. What type of tools are we creating? Are we creating Harlan or Smith? And to us, it's always about Smith. And to ensure that we create Smith, we needed to come up with a framework that we can adopt to address the issues within communities, so that we end up with Smith. Our framework had to always be locally relevant and informed by our community, responsible and ethical for policies and regulation, and explainable to the entire society at large before we move on to collect data, design the model, deploy them, observe the performance, monitor it, and go back. And by responsible for policy and regulation, we mean it needs to be accountable, auditable, compliant, ethical, respectful, safe, and secure. By explainable to the entire society at large, we mean it needs to be equitable, fair, interpretable, reliable, reproducible, transparent, trustworthy, unbiased. And by locally relevant to the community in question, we mean autonomous, caring, connecting, decolonized, human and community-centered, inclusive, intentional, intersectional, just, practical, protecting, process-based, and sustainable. All of these, we try to contextualize this to the local community in question. What does each of these keywords mean when it comes to community, so that it no longer become a buzzword? But we needed to come up with a framework that we discuss before we move on. And that leads, this framework now inform our approach, which is interdisciplinary approach grounded in an intersectional, feminist, and decolonial framework. What we do here is we meet with communities every week. We listen to the communities. We plan with the communities. We learn from the communities and co-create with them. At the same time, we build capacity in the community. When I'm sitting on the community table or when my team is on the community, we are a piece to mount a coffee table. Is multidisciplinary, intersectorial, sitting with the community because everybody comes from the community. And once everybody sit there, there are community ambassadors within Canada that move from door to door. They come back and discuss the issue. And each piece of the coffee table, you look at a screwdriver, each screwdriver can mount a particular component of the coffee table. And this is what we do with the community. There are different disciplines that comes into mount that coffee table. We are one piece. And with us, when we mount, we fit into one particular screw, which is the screw of making the data more predictable, more smarter, and impactful for communities. That's the piece where we fit in. There are other people that help us in that process from different disciplines. And that's how we get a complete table for the community to have coffee on. And this have to happen and get feedback from the community, and we meet regularly with them every week.
That's really great, Jude. Thank you so much for really going into detail, not only about your background, where you come from and what led you to this work, but also how the pillars that you mentioned are embedded into the conceptual framework of the AIMMLab and the work that you and your team are doing. So I want to get a little bit more into the actual approach when you sit down with your team to do this work with communities. What approach do you use to address disease outbreaks and public health questions that come out of communities?
Thank you. I love the word questions that come out of community. When we go to the community, we go there as members of the community to listen to what is happening in our community. We use an approach that is far away from the typical approach that researchers have used before, in particular from the background where we come from, mathematics and other fields, where people sit in their offices, they create a problem that this is a problem in the community. Then they build a solution that this is a solution for this particular problem. And then they go to communities and tell them, this is your problem and this is a solution. In our approach, we are part of the community. We listen to the issues that are coming up and the pieces that we can fit. We then bring it back to the lab to have a conversation. I bring it back to the lab after listening to input from other people, given the piece that I can fit on the coffee table. We then bring it to the lab where we discuss as a team on different projects, and then different people, because we have a multidisciplinary team as well in the lab, bring in their different expertise to fit in the particular component of the coffee table that we're about to mount. Then we take it back to the community every week to get feedback from the community. And by so doing, we end up co-creating that particular solution with the community. What happened when you do that with the community is that the community is part of it. They created the solution. No matter what it is, they end up uptaking the solution because the communities are involved in every aspect of the work that we do. We co-create with them. They end up uptaking it because they're part of it. And if they take their solution and there's something wrong with their solution, we meet every week and they bring it back and we adjust it. The explainability power of it is there because the communities know everything that went into it. If something is going wrong, they knew what is going wrong because they were involved in the creation of that tool. At the end, no matter what, the community use the product and they're excited about it. Communities fail to use product when it's imposed on them. But in our case, it's a different ballgame because the community is not a product imposed on the community, but the community created the product. And that's why they use it. They use it because they're part of the product. It's their product. They own it.
Thank you so much for that, Jude. And I'm very excited to be learning more about the application of not only the conceptual framework of this program, but also the community-centered approach that you've described in the work that we'll be getting into in later episodes when I'm speaking to the AIMMLab team. And on that note, I would really appreciate it if you could provide a very high-level overview of what's to come in the following episode. So we'll have In the next 3 episodes, we'll be speaking to many members of your team. Would you please give a description of what listeners can anticipate in the following episodes?
I can't wait to listen to them. So amazing speakers, amazing researchers that care so much about community, that spend a lot of time with community. And starting with Zara has been doing an excellent work. Dr. Nia has been doing an excellent work on creating real-time surveillance systems for community using unconventional data to provide real-time forecast, earlier detection, and hotspot within the community. This is just a secret for you to wait and listen to it to be able to hear her talk about what unconventional data we are using. We have been able to tap within Canada where other people can access that data to be able to use it for their research, and what real-time earlier warning system we already have in place, and that which community is using that earlier warning system. You will equally be able to hear from Dr. Gillan talk about the responsible AI solutions that we have for community health, the apps that we have built for communities, and the learning that the intelligence that we're getting from the global south and applying to Canadian communities. You will hear our very own Dr. Abbas talk about federated learning. There is something that we are living out here, one Canadian data. So surprising that Ontario data, public health data, do not speak to Manitoba just next door. Manitoba does not speak to Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan does not speak to Alberta. Alberta does not speak to BC, and so on across the entire country. The Animal Health Canada does not communicate with Public Health Canada. If we are breaking silos and thread within the country, we equally need to break silos on data. And federated learning is proven to be key. Decentralized federated learning. Our very own Abbas will speak into this and speak to how we're trying to get communities connected such that we maintain the privacy of the data within the community. You don't get access to community data, but you can get intelligence on the parameters from each community and have community share parameters together so that we break the silos that exist. Abbas will speak into what we are doing to ensure we improve the security of the AI solutions in communities, even those that are developed within an emergency, to ensure that nobody poisons those AI solutions as the community use it. Our very own Yang will speak about if we collect different public health data you collect image data, time series data, how do we ensure that we integrate all this data in one framework to be able to inform policy at the level of community? Multimodal data fusion to help us prepare for pandemics. Yak will speak strongly about this multimodal approach, bringing data from different sources and using that to prepare for pandemics within the country. Our very own Ching will come in to look at the mechanistic modeling. How do we move on from single layer epidemic model, as COVID-19 has taught us on the failure of single layer epidemic model, to beyond 2 layers that take into account behavioral separately or misinformation aware separately, because this tend to look at it as binary, to multiple layer that take into account the mental health and issues that communities face, the socioeconomic issues within communities, within mechanistic model. The classical mechanistic model have looked at single layer, homogeneous human behave the same. But in reality, COVID has shown to us that that's not always the case. So our very own Dr. Ching will make a case for moving away from the classical epidemic models to behaviorally responsive and misinformation aware epidemic framework for adaptive realities. And not to forget our very own Sheriff, who will talk about the capacity that we are building in the country from high school to undergrad level for students to be passionate about this way of doing research, for students to be passionate about leveraging artificial intelligence to solve health issues within their communities. So stay tuned. It's going to be a very great conversation. I can't just wait. And again, I bet you it will be a very interesting one.
Very excited to be getting into those conversations. And of course, at the end, we'll have you join us back again to reflect on the various discussions that we've had with the AIMMLab team and get into some of the other details of the work that you're working on. You've mentioned federated learning, you've mentioned misinformation. All of these are very important topics that we will revisit at the end of this mini-series. So thank you again. Any final comments before we end the episode?
No, thank you so much, Wendy. We really grateful for our school, the Netherlands School of Public Health, for all the support and the platform that they provided for us to be able to work with communities, welcoming communities every day in the lab. So we're very, very grateful. And again, we are grateful for the Public Health Agency of Canada for this opportunity to be able to spotlight the work that we're doing with communities and for the interest in this particular approach of working with communities, ensuring that the work that is done in labs across universities is very impactful for Canadian communities. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jude, and thank you for setting the stage for this mini-series to talk about the work that you and your team are doing as members of the AIMMLab. And I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to our discussion.
This concludes our conversation with Dr. Jude Kong from the University of Toronto about all the work that he and his team are doing in the field of AI in modeling for public health with community-centered approaches. Please stay tuned for the second episode in this 5-part mini-series highlighting the important work from the AIMMLab. In the next episode, we'll be speaking to Sharif Shuaib about his work in building capacity for AI and math modeling at the community level. Also joining us is Dr. Yang Xu about how his work in air quality monitoring led him to his current project in developing explainable AI tools for epidemic modeling. If you have any questions about this episode or would like another math modeling concept or researcher featured on this podcast series, please write to us at nccid@umanitoba.ca. Production of this podcast has been made possible through a financial contribution from the Public Health Agency of Canada, but the views expressed here do not necessarily represent those of the agency. Learn more at nccid.ca.